What we're going to look at today, we're going to start with section 9. And section 9 is relating to percents, decimals, and fractions, and how we can go from one form to the other form. A percent is an amount of 100. So 100% would be, in essence, the whole amount of something. It would be the total. If you think back, anytime that you may have ever seen a circle graph represents 100%, the whole amount. Let's say if half of the circle here is 50%, and then let's say this amount of the circle is 20%, we can calculate that the remaining amount, 50 and 20, gives you 70%. 70 from 100 would let you know that remaining would be 30%. So a percent is represented by a whole amount. Another thing that you may see is you may see a chart, and it would be divided into 10 rows and 10 columns. And then if you were shading in your percentage, you would shade in however many of those, but it would be a 10 by 10 would be the size of the chart that you're looking at. If it's 100%, you shade the whole thing. Any multiples of 10, you do an entire row of 10. Now, if you're asked how to change a percent to a fraction, I'm going to show you handwritten how to do these, and then I'm also going to show you some things using the calculator. How to convert from a percent to a fraction. So if we were to have, let's say, 15%, and I want to make that a fraction, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the percent sign. So that's going to give me just 15. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 1 over 100. Now this number times 1 is still going to give me that same number over 100. So in essence, what I have is 15 over 100. So I'm going to take the numeral, put it over 100, and from here, what I'm going to do is simplify. You can do this longhand if you like, or I'm going to show you how you can use your calculator to do so. Each of these have a multiple of 5, so we could divide each of these by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So my simplified answer would be 3/20. The way I would like to show you to do this on the calculator, however, is if you type in the number 15, 15 is over 100 because 15 times 1 was 15, divided by 100, and then you get a decimal for your answer. And if you look at this, this is your tenths, this is your hundredths place, so that's 15 in essence over 100. If you press math and then enter 2 times, 1, 2 times, it will change it to a simplified fraction, which is the 3/20. So if you're going to use your calculator, our keystrokes are going to be 15 divided by 100. You press enter. It gives you a decimal. Then you press the button that's labeled math, and then you press enter 2 more times, and it gives you a reduced fraction. Okay, let's do another one of those. We'll do another example or two. let's say we have 12.5%. Now, how can I write 12.5? Isn't 12.5 represented by 12.5? Isn't a half a 0.5? So we can write actually the 0.5. If it was a fourth, you could write 0.25. If it was 3/4, you could write a 0.75. So we drop the percent, and then we are going to, in essence, divide by 100. So when we multiply by 1 over 100, that gives us 12.5 over 100. So that's going to be the division. So 12.5 divided by 100, we get a decimal answer. Now we're going to press math and enter 2 times, and that gives us 1/8. 1/8 is going to be our reduced fraction. Let's do one that's a little bit larger. So let's say we have 125%. So that's going to be 125 times 1 over 100, which means we have 125 over 100. We're going to use our calculator. 125 divided by 100, 1.25. Now we're going to press math and enter twice. And they want the answer as either a fraction or a mixed number. This is going to give us a mixed number, 5/4. How do we change 5/4 back to a mixed number? One of two ways. I could divide 4 into 5. 4 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4, and I have a remainder of 1. So that would give me 1 and 1/4. This 1 at the top is our whole number. The remainder at the bottom is the new numerator, and the 4 stays the same. Another way we can do this on the calculator to convert it, and this is super simple. If we have 5/4 and we want to make it a mixed number, I'm going to press the button that says alpha y equals, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose number 3. That's where it takes a fraction and changes it to a mixed number. So I'm going to choose number 3, 1 and 1/4. So on the calculator, what I did was the 5/4 was already there. We pressed the buttons alpha, y equals, and then you choose number 3. And after you choose number 3, you press enter. And that gives you the 1 and 1/4, which is the same as if we did it longhand, which is what you would have covered back in DMA 20. Let's just do another one real easy. Let's say we have 250 over 100. If it's 250%, that over 100. All we need to do is take this, and I can just simply do alpha y equals, choose number 3, and it's going to give me, in this case, the first thing I get is the fraction. So let's do alpha y equals number 3, and it's going to change that 5/2 to 2 1/2. So that is going from a percent to a fraction. Let's say we now want to go from a percent to a decimal. There's a couple of ways you can go about doing it. You can multiply. There's 3 methods. 3 methods. I personally choose the third method, but I'll show you all 3. The first method is to multiply by 0.01. The next method is to divide by 100, or, and that's method, let's see, we got 1, 2, and 3. The third method is to move your decimal 2 places to the left. So, for example, if I were to have 27%, I can multiply 27 times 0.01. I could take 27 and I can divide it by 100, or I can take the number 27, and I'll show you how to do all three of these. So for the first one, let's clear 27 times 0.01. It gives me a 0.27. If I take 27 and divide it by 100, 27 divided by 100, I also get a 0.27. And for this method, moving the decimal, the understood decimal is on the right. If I go left 1, 2 places, that itself is a 0.27. So you have three ways by which you can change from one form to the other. How do we write a decimal as a percent? If we're going to go from decimal to percent. For this one, there's two ways to do this. One method that you can do is to multiply by 100, or the second decimal would be to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So if I were to have, let's say, a 0.13, and I want to make that a percent, if I multiply by 100, let's do 13 times 100, that's going to give us, oh, wait a minute, I typed that in wrong. Give me 1 second. Let me look. Yeah, I left my decimal off. My 0.13 times 100 gives me 13, so that will be 13%. If I took this 13, right now the decimal is in front. The other method is to move the decimal right 1, 2 places, which moves it to the right side. That means it no longer belongs there, and that would give me 13%. You will have a problem that you will work with. And this is going to be similar to one that you may have when you do your testing, is you're going to have columns for all three of these. We're going to have a column for percent, decimal, and a fraction column. We're going to have all three. And on this chart, this table, you're going to be given several values. One of them you're going to be given, let's say here's 120%. Here we're given 1.4, and here we're given the fraction 3/5. And we're going to be asked to finish filling in the chart. For this 20%, we're going to go left or right. We've got the percent, and we want to make it a decimal. So to make a percent a decimal, as we just did, we can move our decimal 2 places to the left. So starting here, I would go left 1, 2. This answer is a 0.20. I could also, if I want to go from now my decimal to a fraction, you would take this 0.20. Actually, we're going to come back to the 20. It's going to be 20 over 100. So if we do here 20 over 100, that gives us the decimal 0.2. See, 0.2, we still put the 0 if we like. To make that a fraction, we press math and enter twice, and that gives us 1/5 in lowest terms. If we take the 1.4, if we want to go from a decimal to a percent, we're going to take this decimal point and move it 2 places to the right. So if I have a 1 and a 4 and I go to the right 2 places, that's going to give me 140%. It is the same as taking the 1.4 and multiplying it by 100, which would give me 140%. To go from the decimal to the fraction, the easiest way is just type in your 1.4, and then when you do math, enter, it's going to give you that in the form of an improper fraction, 7/5. So you would then give 7/5. If they for a mixed number, we can convert that by doing alpha y equals, choose number 3, and that gives us 1 2/5. So the answer might be written in either of these two forms. You just have to look and see which way they want you to give it. Okay, let's look at this last one here. We're given the fraction. So if we use our calculator, we just type in the fraction 3/5 and press enter, that gives us our decimal, a 0.6. And then when I want to go from my decimal to the percent, I'm either going to multiply by 100 or I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. So when I take that decimal here, I get 60 when I multiply by 100. If I started here and moved 2 places to the right, that would give me my 60%. So that's all of what you're doing in section 9, okay? Now let's look at section 10. Section 10, um, they give you several different ways to set these up. When you do your computer work, they give you problems, and let me write this down. We're solving percent problems using, here they use equations. I'm going to show you first how to do that. And the way I like to do it is solving these using a proportion. Okay, but what I want to start with when I do these first few is I'm going to come to section 10 on the computer. The first 3 questions, they make you write a formula. So I'm going to do the first few of those. And when you go to do yours on the computer, your first 3 are going to be set up the same way. Everything after that, you're going to use proportions. When we set these up using proportions, let me give you a couple of keywords. Of means you're going to multiply. When you see the word is means something is equal. And when it says what number or the unknown amount, that means the variable. Actually, they're using the letter N, so I'll write N. Means whatever the variable may be. Okay? And that's what we're going to use when we set up the equation. 68% of 72 is what number? 68% of 72 is what number? So to set this up, we would write 68 of means times 72 is, and then the what number is a point, no, not a point, is the variable, the n. So that's what they would want you to be writing here is your six, and they're asking you to use X to be the unknown number. So you would type in your 68 times 72 equals X. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is 60% of what number is 85? 60% of what number is 85? So again, we write down the 60. The of is times. The what number is the variable is 85. So they're just wanting these written in this form, into the form of an equation. And let's look at the third one. 7.4 is 50% of what number? 7.4 is 50% of what number? So 7.4 would be equal to 50 times the number. So in the first three problems, they're not asking you to solve. They just want to know what the equation is. Once you move to number 4, notice it says translate to an equation and solve. Let X be the unknown number. And here it says X equals, and you're given your solution as a whole number or a decimal. So what number is 78% of 91? What number is 78% of 91? Now let me show you how I like to set these up. From here forward, when it asks you to solve, your percent is always over the 100. From the sentence, you're going to use the keywords is and of. So when I do this problem, I would set my problem up initially and I would put the 100 on the bottom left. Then I look at the problem and I ask myself, are there any percents in the problem? And there is, 78%. Don't change it to a decimal or do anything else. Just take the number 78, the percent, and put it over the 100. What number is? Is would be the top. Is the unknown. That's what we're solving for. Of 91. The of 91 is going to go in the denominator. Now, we have a proportion. Do you remember what we do with these? The two that are diagonal, we cross multiply, and then we divide by the 100. So what we're going to have here is 91 times 78. 91 times 78 and divide by 100. And my solution is 70.98. That will be my solution. Because it does say here that it will accept an integer or a decimal. Okay, this one is 7.2 is 18% of what number? 7.2 is 18% of what number? So you're going to draw your lines for your proportion, put the 100 on the bottom. Now let me just make note of this because you would have this on your paper off to the side so you can refer to it. What they tell us is that 7.2 is. The is goes on the top right. 18%. The percent is always above the 100. Of what number? The of, the denominator, is the unknown. So for this one, what I'm going to multiply are going to be 100 times 7.2 and then divide by 18. So 100 times 7.2 and then divide by 18. So that would give me 40 as my solution. Okay, let's do one more where we're solving for a percent. Let me find one that has a percent. Here we go. What percent of 154? What percent of 154 is 23.1? So that's how we would initially set it up. Percents over 100 is on top, of is on bottom. So what percent? That's what we're trying to solve for. The percent is the unknown. Of 154, the of value goes in your denominator, is 23.1. The is value goes in the numerator. And now we're going to cross multiply and divide. So we're going to multiply 100 times 23.1. And then we're going to divide by the 154. And that gives us 15%. So my solution here is 15%.